And we are live. JT here. Welcome to the Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are watching on YouTube or on Facebook, whether you're listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any distractions and get laser focus on the here and the now. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guest today. It's been interesting that we've known each other a short time in this 3D world, but I feel like there's just these people where you meet with them, you connect with them, you just feel like you've been connected, like there's just a deeper connection. My guest in the huddle today is a coach at Nelson Lords in the Halton region, and he's also recently been named our Team Ontario U16 women's flag head coach. My guest in the huddle today is Coach Lu Cruz. How are you today, brother?
I'm good, JT. First and foremost, thank you for having me on this. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you today.
Absolutely, brother. And before we get kicked off, pun intended, I really want to take a moment to count my blessings. You and I have had some great conversations,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I'm a firm believer in counting your blessings. For me, it's a daily practice. Some days I do it better than others, but I do find the days I'm most consistent with counting my blessings, I find that life feels a little richer and more fulfilling. And I know the biggest blessing you can give anyone is your time and energy. So I just want to thank you again for blessing me with some of your time and energy today here, brother.
And I totally received that, JT, and thank you as well for taking the time out of your day. But moments like these ones you can't pass up. You just gotta, like as you say, burn the boats and go for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the magic of life is, the burn the boats.
Burn the boats.
Okay. So I'm curious, one of the things I like to remind myself and remind others is that life is a game and games are supposed to be fun. So I'm curious, what's an interesting fact? I had a coaching colleague that said we all have our quirks, we all have these things that make us unique and different. So what's an interesting fact that about you that maybe a lot of people don't know that you'd be open to sharing with our community today?
I don't think a lot of people realize that I recently became a Canadian citizen, and that happened during the global pandemic with COVID. It took me 32 years to actually take that step, and this resonates so much with what you've been offering in my insights as a coach, as a father, as a husband, as a former player, and now a mentor to an amazing program at TMO. Um, Honestly, the journey to get to that point took a lot, and everyone always asks like, "Oh, where are you from? Where are you from?" I'm from Central America, Guatemala City. Came here in 1987. Cole's Notes version. My parents always asked like, "Why don't you want to become a Canadian citizen?" I just said, "Well, it's just I don't know where I came from. I don't know. It was the unknown, right?" And then I finally, when this journey started, I was like, "Okay, it's time. It's time. It's time." So I find it interesting when my colleagues ask, like when we're talking about diversity at school or in just conversations on the field, people always say like, "Oh, so like where are you from?" I'm like, I'm from here now. I'm like, they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I just became a Canadian citizen in 2020 via Zoom." The deputy prime minister was on my Zoom chat, which I thought was hilarious because in the middle of my uh, citizenship ceremony responsibilities and doing my rights of citizenship, the call stopped. And it said your free membership has expired via Zoom. So then the judge came back on and apologized that the government of Canada was using a free month subscription of Zoom in the middle of my citizenship ceremony. So I thought that was a great moment. So yeah, that's a little tidbit of something that a lot of my friends and family really don't know. And I kept that close to my heart, but now I'm sharing it with the world, right? I've
Yeah.
been blessed to come here with two immigrant parents that gave us every single opportunity we've had. And I have three brothers and a sister that are all successful in giving back to the communities that they live in as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, family is everything to us here, and the opportunities that Canada gave to us and continue to give to us are amazing.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being open to sharing. And I know it's something that, I think one of the things that connected us is that we are both first generation here, right? So our parents came to this country, right, from a different part of the world. So I'm curious from your perspective, seeing your parents take courageous action to change the trajectory of your family tree and to bring you and your siblings here. In hindsight, kind of what do you think that taught you or gave you? I'm curious.
It gave us opportunity, it gave us hope, it gave us determination. And one thing my parents really hammered into us growing up here was like, you need to learn the culture, you need to really embrace the culture, but don't forget your culture as well, right? Don't
Mhm.
forget where you came from. And like you, like it's amazing that you say I count my blessings every day. My parents growing up, they would always remind us about all the gratitude in our lives, right? So we had
Mhm.
gratitude rocks growing up as kids, and you'd hold that rock in your hand and you would literally just go over like, thank you for being here, thank you for this life, thank you for allowing us to be here, thank you for giving us the opportunities to attend school, thank you for
Mhm.
allowing me the opportunity to play sports, right?
Mhm.
And our parents really made us community aware. Like we would have to go volunteer. If we
Mhm.
wanted to play sports, our parents would make us volunteer, not make us, but tell us to go volunteer
Mhm.
because we couldn't afford to play a lot of the sports that were offered, right? So we would have to go volunteer our hours. And
Mhm.
through certain organizations, then they would help us with our fees, right?
Mhm.
So in that sense, it was always like my parents came here and always wanted us to give back to the community. And I think that's why I got into coaching to begin with, is to give back to the community, the school community that
Mhm.
I coached for and the organizations I was a part of and still am a part of, to give back and grow communities. Like that's one thing that has really stuck with me since coming here.
Mm. I love that. And it's interesting, like as you share that, where it's the power of perception, right? One thing I know we've talked about this that, sometimes I stop and actually I'm unable to even imagine what my parents had coming to a country where they didn't know anyone. There's no job prospects, and you're way on the other side of the world or really far away from family. Just imagine what it's like to just have to, as I always say, figure it out. But I do love the fact of, I think it sort of taught us the power of like community, of family, and this idea of giving back, because it almost makes you realize, like, when you have the opportunity and you're blessed to create, a great life, it almost makes you just want to bless other people with it. So again, it really resonates with me what you're sharing.
No, definitely. Thank you so much, JT. And I definitely received that as well. Yeah, it's to think what our parents did, like you just said, is I can't imagine the journey, but they did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my two other siblings, younger siblings that were born here too, like to raise two other Canadian born children here.
Mm-hmm.
And like I have to pause sometimes, and like sometimes I catch myself pausing on the commute to work. I look around. I'm like, I live in a beautiful community in Beamsville, Ontario, but I also am blessed to work in for the Halton District School Board
Mm-hmm.
and drive over the bridge every day where people are like, oh, my commute's terrible. But I literally, when I'm stuck in traffic, look over to the right and I see Lake Ontario and the sun's rising and it's a new opportunity, a new day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think about like my commute being bad. It's like that time where I'm able to actually reflect a lot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
think about where I am, how I got here, or where I want to go.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious. We got connected through a mutual friend, Jason Langvey, who was on the podcast over a year and a half ago, and he just, I don't know, it was interesting, right? He just said you two have to connect, and it was interesting. In fact, from our first conversation, it just felt like, again, we had a deeper connection. Like, you just have this where you feel like you haven't known someone for a long time, but you do feel like it. So it's always interesting. And I know on that first conversation, you shared some of your experience as a high quality athlete and a coach. Um, you know, you've been part of a very successful program with the Nelson Lords, who's prominent, one of the premier high school football programs in the province. I would even say is well known, nationally in Canada. And now you've transitioned to this team O role. So I'm curious, what life lesson have you taken from sport? And again, I know there's many that you find you still apply this lesson to your life every day in other aspects.
I think with sports, sports brings us together. It always has. I think for me, it always will. And raising two beautiful daughters that I have, very strong-minded young ladies like their mother, is something I will continue to do. But with sports, it's family. It resonates to every single aspect of how you like move in life, right? You feel there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of care, there's the tough love, there's the adversity and getting over that, there's dealing with failure and using failure to motivate you to be better,
Mm-hmm.
practicing, but not just practicing on the field, off the field, in all aspects of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you carry yourself as a young man or woman or gender minority, like it's choosing that path that I think at a young age when you start playing sports, that it's the sense of belong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And care and nurturing, that you put all your trust in these adults you don't know, right? As a
Mm-hmm.
young person, even as an adult, that their responsibility to you is to basically motivate you to be great and to elevate yourself in every aspect of your life. So I carry that every single day, right? In the classroom, as an educational assistant, as an educator in the building, giving back to my school community. And then my football program at Nelson High School, right? I've resonated that, made so many relationships, continue to make relationships with former and current players. And those relationships mean a lot. Like they really
Mm-hmm.
do. And I'm blessed to receive them all the time. And I see, like, when you see your players moving on, right? I'm one of the assistant head coaches of the junior program. So I'm at the developing stage of a player who's honestly sometimes are so green, they come on the field, their equipment's rattling, and you're trying to get the
Yeah.
equipment manager to fix them up. And you see that look of like, oh my gosh, like, and then you walk over and you give them that sense of calm and
Mm-hmm.
your approach to them, right? And that sense of calm, I think, is, and that approach is how I literally talk to. I'm a very social guy.
Yeah.
So I can literally strike up a conversation. My mom said as a young boy to talk to people at the bus stop and be like, you just talk to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think the gift of gab is what God's blessed me with, and I need to share that with the world, right? And I have
Mm-hmm.
been, and I will continue to do that. And I think it's just sports unites us all through
Yeah.
tragedy, through um, everything that's happening in the world right now. Everyone can relate at some point in their life, that whether it was watching sports, participating in sports, being an athlete, being a coach, being a trainer, front office, personnel, you name it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sports equals family. And I think everyone wants that sense of belonging, to be part of a family.
Mm. I love that. And that word came up several times as you were sharing, right? That sense of belonging, that greater sense of community, right? Even that greater sense of family. And I know that word sometimes gets overused. And we're having that conversation with Coach Cercelli from Windsor about that. Like the word family gets overused, but again, it's something you can't necessarily hear, see, smell, taste, or touch, but it's just sort of that unconditional love where it's like, okay, we may not agree on everything, but we're working towards a common vision here, right? A common goal. Um, so I'm curious, I had the opportunity, again, you talk about life's all divine timing. I actually had an opportunity to watch you and the junior team at Nelson play Bill Carruthers earlier this year. And I think what resonated with me the most was, in terms of a scoreboard, that game didn't end in your favor. But
No.
what I found fascinating is that from there, you and the program, you, the coaches, the other student athletes, the families, you got stronger and you ended up being a catalyst for you to win the last game of the season and be recognized as Metro Bowl champions at the junior level. So I'm curious from your perspective, your experience, what was that like dealing with that adversity early on, but then actually using that as a catalyst to, like you say, bring your greatness to the surface?
I'll be honest, it's our coaching staff and what the Nelson football program is all about. We're lucky enough and blessed enough to have Coach Nick Malekis, who's been a part of the Nelson Junior program, who now has 4 Metro Bowl championships under his belt, has been with the program for over 28 years. And to have a coach like that that's mentored me and has really brought me into the program and given me the opportunities to help run a solid defense, and put me in situations where I wasn't quite comfortable yet with it, being one of the younger coaches on the team. And like he allowed me to really grow the team and give a mindset to that junior team that is the Nelson Lords football program, right? That was always there, but coming out of a post-pandemic world where football was gone, right? And then last year, where football was sort of there, but not really, nothing counted. There was no medals, there was no trophies, but I think that really brought our program together at the junior level, even at the senior one with everything that they went through. Adversity, right? Like getting over that and being able to come back from that. And at the start of the year, I'll always remember a training camp in late August. We were at Robert Bateman High School and we were training there on their grass field, right? Our turf field wasn't quite done yet. And Coach Nick looked over at the coaching staff and he said to us, I think this team's gonna win the Metro Bowl this year. And that was just from the sheer numbers that we had from our feeder school program that I helped run. And we saw the numbers and just, you could just tell there was a sense of greatness on the field right away when you stepped on. And how much, even watching the seniors as they stepped onto the field as well with Coach Brock and Coach Mess, it was just, there was just a, I don't know if you want to call it, the atmosphere was just about, everyone knew what the end goal was going to be. Everyone knew that this season was going to be special. But then you travel up to where we went at a non-conference game against a high quality team like that, and we couldn't do anything right. On either side of the ball, you name it, from special teams all the way down to our best defensive players. Like, and at that age, it's so hard to get students out of that stuck mentality. Like they're so young and they're developing and they're losing and they tend to give up and they tend to not want to play as hard. And but you know what, coach put us at halftime. It was Coach Moore that really just said, like, guys, like we got to play for pride here. Like what's on your chest comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of history. This is our family. Whether we want to end the game in the last couple of plays with big hits, with finishing your tackle, with running through it, no matter what, this game, you're going to remember this game. And this game is going to really define our season. So we could either take our lumps that we're taking right now, keep our heads held high, and go work the next week and put in the work after week after week after week after week. And we continue to do that. So rather than getting down on ourselves, because honestly, I don't think we've lost like that in a very long time. I can't even remember, to be honest with you. The program's so decorated, right? But that really allowed us as coaches to come together and really talk about like what's next steps, right? And it was a funny season for me because I had to at one point walk away from the team. And it was a family decision because my wife Heather decided to pursue her career, her lifelong dream, and I pushed her. And we talk about how we push individuals to be great. She literally decided that it was time to finish her teaching degree, and she wrote a letter to Niagara University in Buffalo. And she's a mature student, so she didn't think she would get into the teaching program or get accelerated for that matter. She's got diplomas from colleges that she had and other certificates that through education or as an educational assistant. She was doing that for 17 years. And we both looked at each other and said, I think it's time for you to go back and like, this is what you've always wanted. It'll better our lives or better our family. And it just happened that every single time she had to be in Buffalo was during game days, right?
Mhm.
or the walkthroughs on Thursdays. And it was just our schedule didn't work, but we looked at each other and said, no, we're going to make it work. And I remember having a conversation with Coach Brock, and he said, like, obviously, like, you have to go, like, this is families above all, right? Like, this is what you have to do to better your life, to better your family. And it's amazing what your wife's doing. The support from Coach Mess and the other coaches there as well was fantastic. But it was Coach Nick Malekas that said, Cruz, I know you're going to come back. He goes, you got to make this work. You got to figure it out. I want you to be a part of the season, right? And the players were deflated. You could tell they're like, oh my gosh, we're losing Coach Cruz. Like, this is not going to be, this is not good, right? But I think he had all the confidence in our other coaches, especially our assistant head coach, Coach Moore, where they basically took that and explained to the boys, like, hey, he's doing what's best for his family. We're a family. This happens in families. We're going to come back, right? And when I actually figured out life and we were able to work out a great schedule at home, that work-life balance, and when I got back to the field, and when I got back to that first game in practice after being away for almost a month, um, something just clicked, right? And I
Mhm.
knew that this season was going to be something special, and it was, and it continued to be. And it was almost, we laughed as coaches after the season was over. We were like, that was like, we literally just went through every single team we played, and we played some really great programs.
Mhm.
And but also it resonated to everyone showing up on time every day, everyone giving 110%, everyone buying into our program and what we were preaching to our kids, right? Getting them to think into the results of their everyday life, but above all, always preaching student athletes, right? We wanted these young men to pride themselves not just on the field but off the field, and really represent what Nelson football is all about,
Mhm.
and develop them as young men into a season that was greatness, right?
Mhm. I love, you know, as you shared, again, you painted a beautiful picture just from what it was like. One thing that really caught my attention there was how, you shared this idea where it reminded me that we are programmed from an early age, that our results control our thinking, right? Whether it's a scoreboard, right? Whether it's a mark on a test, whether as we grow up as adults, it's a job title, it's the number of zeros in our bank account, how that result-based thinking is really what can keep you stuck in life. But like you said, when you actually think, about what you do want, right? About what the end goal is, the vision, where you're going. Like if I'm driving in the car with my eyes on the road ahead, like it's amazing what blessings, what adventures, what opportunities, how your results just transform. So I really love that you shared that. And it's a testament to you and the coaches for developing that habitual way of thinking and behaving. So kudos to you, coach.
No, and I appreciate that. And for me, the boys always say I'm the hype coach, right? I'm the one that likes to talk at the beginning of the game, the middle of the game, at the end of the game, after my head coach talks, of course. With Coach Nick, he's phenomenal with getting the boys together, and he'll say, all right, Coach Cruz, you're up. And
Mhm.
I basically get the stage to really fire the boys up, and but not in the sense of like, hey, let's go, I'll smash them in the head. Like, no, it's like I really wanted to resonate the sense of like, everyone's got your back in this team. Like, come together, right? And I always used a quote from Nick Saban that says, what happens yesterday is history. What happens tomorrow is a mystery, fellas. But what you do right now and today will
Mhm.
make all the difference,
Mhm.
right? And they just sit and pause. I'm like, think of that for a second. What you do today will make a difference.
Mhm.
How you started your day today will make a difference. So, and that was the best thing to always say to them right before our walkthroughs on Thursdays, right? It's like,
Mhm.
what happened yesterday is history. So it was basically when we got that loss from an amazing program, and it was it was that thing. It's history, right? We
Mhm.
can't dwell on it. We can't let it beat us up. Uh, I think every single player and every single coach that day really, it checked us in a good way. It humbled us.
Yeah.
it humbled us in the best way possible to bring this program to the elite level that it was and to ultimately be Metro Bowl champions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But we were literally the ones scripting our own destiny,
Yeah.
right, this season. And to elevate this program to what it is, I can't thank enough to Coach Brock for what he does, his tireless hours running this program. Like, he's a phenomenal coach, and he gave me the opportunity because I ran a program at Robert Bateman High School, which was not a great program. We didn't have as much as Nelson and everything else that was being offered there. We were a tier 2 team, but I think that my hard work and dedication when I was at that school, and how I was running a program as a head coach there, regardless of what the score was every single game, you wouldn't be able to tell on the sidelines if we were losing 24-0, 64-0, 48-0, 48-3. Like, it was just, to me, I always told the boys at that school was, I don't care about the score. I don't care for winning or losing. I care about how you're going to play every single snap, how you're going to finish every single tackle, how you're going to help your brother beside you, how you're going to represent this program in the halls, at home, in your family, in your everyday life. It doesn't matter if we're that team that everyone looks at, oh, there's an easy win. Well, we're not going to make it easy. And we never really did, to be honest,
Yeah.
right? But then when that's high school closed, unfortunately, everything was transitional phase going to Nelson, and Coach Brock had approached me, and I was wearing my Robert Bateman football attire. And he
Yeah.
said to me, he goes, "Hey, we got to get you a Nelson hoodie right away."
Okay.
And we talk about we're always representing Nelson.
Yeah.
Like, it's my family. Every single coach there, um, from Coach Moore to Coach Brock to Coach Mark Mess, the department head there, Coach Ali Martin, Coach Aaron Williams. They're that phys ed department, what they're doing for that school and that school community is amazing, right? And the administration there with Steven Stanson, the principal, is just phenomenal. Like, everything they do for the Halton District School Board as a football program,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just set the bar so high that other programs are now elevating themselves.
Yeah.
You see Oakville, Trafalgar, Iroquois Ridge, like, they're all just bringing themselves to where we need to be, right?
Yeah.
Greatness promotes greatness, right? Like, it's just, I think it's how it has to happen. And we do our best.
Yeah. No, you bring up a great point, right? Again, you talk about, this idea of how we perceive the world is a programming, it's conditioning, right? And the easy thing to do is to compare, you know, like ourselves to someone else, right? If it's looking at Nelson, oh, Nelson has this, Nelson has that, like that's easy. But what if it was just that reframe where it's just like they're just showing you what's possible when you go all in and truly bet on yourself, as I often like to say. So I'm curious from your perspective. You're coming off this blessing of a season, right? Where it's like you literally go through the ebbs and flows of a season from a loss to where like the greatest highs, right? The greatest lows, the greatest highs. So I'm curious, what inspired you to take courageous action to go all in on this new adventure in your life as the Timo U16 women's flag coach?
I think it was the night that we got back from the Metro Bowl and closing up at the end of the year. You know how it works, right? Like, the season's over, you're collecting uniforms. We have our trainer there who's amazing. Our team managers, we're all there. The coaches are all there, and the boys are coming off the bus. It's the morale's is just so high, right? Like, the experience to see the boys coming off the bus holding the Metro Bowl trophies, and then the reality sinks in that football's over for the season, right? And the restart button starts right away, and that in your mind you're like, okay, the off season begins there, right? And it's amazing to see that Coach Brock was there and Coach Messier were there as well. They're always supporting the junior program, and they helped us like close up shop, right? And things reset, and it's on to the next sport. But honestly, it was the moment where I was in the staff, the coaches, the phys ed department office, and I was taking selfies with all the trophies, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Right?
Yeah.
And I went home and I showed my family, and we were celebrating, and my girls were so excited, and they had their Nelson stuff on and a hat, and my wife had like a amazing like dinner ready with her friends and family, and it was my youngest daughter, Kennedy, and in the middle of the celebration of everything and like having a great season. And she walked up and said, she tugged on my shirt and said, like, "Hey, Dad." I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "So when are you coaching the women's team?" And I looked at her and I was like, what do you mean, honey? Like, she's like, when are you going to coach the girls team? Like, when does that season start? And I went, I said to her, well, there is no football team for girls. And she said, well, that doesn't sound fair. And then she kind of just walked away. And I was like, oh, wow, that really hit a core. And I said, okay, I need to give these opportunities to my daughters. Right. And I'm going to use the platform that I have with Nelson and everything I've learned from the coaches there. And it was through Jason on Grey Cup weekend that he was in Saskatchewan, and I DM'd him on Instagram, and I was texting him, but he was so busy with everything with the NFL or CFLPA stuff and media stuff, and he found time in the middle of the game to message me, and he goes, I have to introduce you to someone, and I will make that connection. He goes, it's going to change your life. And I was like, whoa, is he just excited about football right now? Because that's kind of dramatic, right? And he goes, trust me, brother, it's going to change your life. And I said, okay. I'm like, that's awesome. Looking forward to it. And then he shared the message that you sent to him. And your message said, I would absolutely love to have a conversation with him. I'm looking forward to it. Here's my direct number. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, like he doesn't even know who I am and he wants to talk to me. Like, there's no way this is going to happen. Right. And there's that fixed mindset where I'm already putting that negativity out there, where I'm programmed to say, I don't think I can do this, or I'm not deserving of this. Right. But I knew for some reason that our crowds had a path for some reason. And then like, we talk about being men of faith, and it was just, to me, there was just something that kept drawing me to keep messaging you and keep reaching out. Right. And then you made the connections with providing me the opportunity to connect with Emily Todd, our programs manager for Team Ontario and Football Ontario. And I got to learn her journey and everything that she's gone through the Huddle, and watching an episode with you as well. And from there, it's just taking the, like you said, when I first called you, like you took that first step. You picked up the phone, you called me. He goes, you already knew what you wanted to do, but, and we talked about that in our coaching session, was taking that leap of faith off the cliff, right? And jumping. And I did that, and I'm going to continue to do that. So I talked about a little plot twist. So I love my Nelson Lords family. I really do. But I'm also ready for this next adventure with my new family that I will continue to grow. And here we go. Hold on.
Well, and the plot twist.
And this family to me is just as important as the other one. This is, it beats over the heart for a reason, right? And I am so blessed and honored to be now part of Football Ontario as a U16 women's flag head coach for Team Ontario. And I am so excited and motivated to bring this program, especially with my new coach, Coach Sierra, to bring it to the next level and bring a championship home this year for this program. Everything that Football Ontario stands for is basically what I've been looking for in this journey of mine. I've been searching for it. I've been waiting for it, and it's here. And I remember calling you when that position was available. And I said, I think I'm going to apply. And he goes, well, you know what you have to do. And I said, yeah, I really do. I think I do. And you're like, okay, then do it. And you're amazing like that. When you asked, I'm asking for a solution, and you're like, solve it. You can do this. And I know you will do this, right? So I'm excited. Like this program, I was just at the York ID camp, and I was just the talent and the athlete and the level of greatness at this program and what it continues to offer women, young women, gender minorities, is I'm so excited to be a part of it and to continue to grow this program.
And I love again, you sharing. I love the suspense there where you said, "Oh," then the plot changes, and again, you show this sort of like a not shedding, but the embracing the new opportunity. And it's interesting because I think back to even the courage that took you, right, to reach out. Because if you remember the first call, I remember seeing it. I'm like, I don't know this number, right? And then you actually had the courage to call a second time, and you left me a message that time, right? And I was like, okay. So I really celebrate the fact of you could have easily walked away after that first call where the phone didn't get picked up and just said, oh, and could have, the old program could have given you all these 100 reasons why this wasn't meant for you. But then you had the courage to do it again and you left a message that time. And it was interesting how from you simply leaving that message then sparked us to hop on the phone and actually, have a conversation about truly what you wanted, and from there birth this new adventure in your life. And here we are now a couple months later, and you've gone all in on the next adventure of your life. So that's amazing, brother.
Yeah, and to you as well, like for I wouldn't say taking a chance on me, but I think you saw something in me, and I will hold that conversation we had dear to my heart forever. And that was a conversation between you and I
Yeah.
that I think will just resonate in my life for the rest of it.
Mhm.
When you told me, I had no idea that you wrote a book. And when you did say that, and this book, I've been waiting to read it. And we talked about that. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know why you're waiting so long.
Yeah.
But I last night I was up till I don't know, like it was 11:30 later,
Yeah.
just prepping for today, prepping for the amazing camp that we're having this weekend for our features development camp in Hamilton, Ontario there at Soccer World through a program that our programs manager Emily Todd's putting together to invite young women to learn about flag football and football in general.
Mhm.
I think everything that Team Ontario is doing to promote females in the sport is amazing. So I opened the book last night and I haven't been able to put it down since, but I also appreciate the fact that it says take your time to read it. So this right here has honestly and will continue to, I don't know if we can focus on it.
Yeah.
When I first opened the first page, I am ambitious. Like, and then hearing the story about how your mother, your greatest encouragement was your mom and her finishing her MBA at York University and you being in there with her. And it just hit home so much. And I'm so blessed and honored to have such an amazing wife and supporter and strong woman in my household
Mhm.
and queen in my home that just continues to be the primary caregiver of girls when I'm not around with football, right? She knows that football season takes a lot of time away from
Mhm.
family, but I've really learned to balance both and
Mhm.
to push her to do what your mom did. And then again, like these paths are crossing in life for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And I look at her journey and what she's doing, and I can't, it's hard for me to always ever say around her, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because what she does is just so much and she's just real and she just grinds every day and she just gets to work and she drives to Buffalo and comes back and still help, like it's being a mother is a full-time job and it's one of the hardest jobs I think in the world, and I get a taste of it at least 3 times a week when I'm a single parent at home with the girls and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so much. But then I'm like, you know what, I'm a parent too, but she just kills it. She kills it in everything that she does, and she inspires me every single day to be a better educator, a better father, a better husband, a better brother, and now a better coach. Right, coaching
Mhm.
a women's program and bringing that. And I'm so excited to keep continuing to read this book, and how I know it's already changed a lot in a short span of time, and I
Mhm.
think it's going to do even more. And I will continue to spread that love, especially because purchasing that book is helping athletes in football Ontario with their fees, and that hits home to me. And as soon as I found that out that you're doing that, it reminded me of growing up as a young immigrant player that didn't really have a lot of my parents didn't have a lot of money to put us in high rep sports, but they always found a way. And when we did our volunteerism, the clubs would allow us to play for free.
Mhm.
right? So for you to take anything that you make from this book and give it back to the communities, to players that can't afford to play this level of sport and this level of competition, I think is an amazing thing, brother. And you're blessing so many communities and changing so many lives. And trust me, it works, because I was one of those athletes, right?
Mhm. Well, thank you, brother. Again, I receive it. And it's interesting as you were sharing, start to pull my heartstrings a bit. And I thought about, one, when you were describing sort of the lessons that I sort of received from my mother, just sitting in those rooms playing. Like I didn't even realize how these lessons were, that's where the foundations of I'll figure it out came from, right? Because she was working full time at 9 to 5, and on the weekends she studied for years to get her MBA, and here it is now. And like you said, all those lessons, and then I think back to why has sport always been a connector. And when I walked away from education in 2019, I thought I was done in sport. Like I thought, I no longer feel that passion to be on field, and I was blessed to have some mentors that took a chance on me, that hired me because my willingness to coach and give back. And truth be told, I wasn't willing to do that anymore. So I thought I, my journey is outside of education. But then how you reminded me that I think what brought me back was that sense of belonging. And that was something that was missing when I went to entrepreneurial world, was like, yeah, it's great helping entrepreneurs. But as you said, like there's something about sport that just connects us, that sense of belonging, of family, that I have yet to find an area of life where that connection is the same outside of like my immediate family.
For sure. And one thing you said, I was listening to your podcast with Travis San,
Yeah.
and what an amazing comparison, right? Like you said, you have to listen to this one. This episode's gonna, in the huddle, it's gonna really resonate with you, right? And I listened to it on the way to work this week, and I watched again last night, and I watched again last night again. And you said something in the podcast, and when you in your episode with him, you said responsibility is the price of greatness, and you also said greatness is the byproduct of being all in. And I think you did that when you left coaching, and now you are doing it and connecting with more athletes, with more families, with more communities, with more football programs, with taking people like myself and elevating us to motivate and look at ourselves and break away from the game of life based on other people's rules. I believe you're doing more now in sport than you ever did as a football coach, and you have a decorated career as a coach as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and you talk about those nuggets of wisdom, like they're just popping out of my head these days, let me tell you, and I'm just sharing them, and I will continue to share them with everyone that I come in contact. And my friends and family always say I'm a walking billboard, and I love my swag, but it's about the pride part of it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And loving being part of an organization, a football program like Nelson, and now a program in football Ontario. And to me, the honor of being a provincial head coach is just look at the smile. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
It means so much to me on so many levels. And my eyes now are set on the OUA, and I know I will get there. I know I will elevate myself to that program. I watch your podcast with Coach Scott Brady, and watch out, Mac. Here I come.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Like again, how as you're describing it, I really look at it, it's interesting. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is how easy it can be to like chase the next shiny object, right? And like in the adult world, it's easy to chase the next like job title, it's easy to chase the next paycheck, the next client. But really, in the grand scheme of things, a rich and fulfilling life is about taking your wisdom that you've gained from your lived experience and simply, as you climb the ladder, it's helping up those that are a little bit behind you on the ladder, and
100%.
just to raise them up, right? So that's I appreciate you sharing, because it just reminds me, like, that's what the game of life is about, right? It's about elevating, it's about empowering others.
I think so too. It's that reset mindset, right? Reset mindset, reset mindset, and thinking into results.
Yeah.
Like I was my own worst enemy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would wake up every single day and say, oh man, like this is gonna be a long drive. Oh man, my job's really hard.
Mhm.
Oh man, I'm never gonna get a coaching position besides high school. Oh man, like when am I gonna have an opportunity? Like just playing the game of life based on other people's rules
Mhm.
and not allowing myself to say, why can't it be me?
Mhm.
Why can't I be great? Why can't I apply for that position? If you don't try, you're never gonna know. And
Mhm.
if you fail, well, you better fail because it's only
Mhm.
gonna make you get better at it,
Mhm.
right? My journey as a coach has not been an easy one. I never got the opportunity to play high level football. Injuries and family situations and finances in life didn't allow me to do that. I had the marks, I had the skill. I was profiled in like high coming out of Dennis Morris High School in St. Catharines at the Catholic program, like great football program. And was doing everything right. And then just that's just life. It's fate. And then
Mhm.
the bigger picture was not to be a player. The bigger picture now that I'm seeing and recognizing is to be a coach at a high level,
Mhm.
but not just for myself, but for the individuals that I'm going to come across and mentor and coach them and make them great and elevate them as well and give them the opportunities that I didn't have.
Mhm.
Right. And that's why I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to be the head coach of a women's program. But the ultimate goal for me is I want a female coach to be the head coach next year
Mhm.
and for me to keep growing Football Ontario and keep growing this program and elevating this program to a national championship. But not just that, but also just the inclusivity and the diversity of the program is phenomenal. It's football for all. We are Football Ontario. Like, think of
Mhm.
that for a second. Football for
Mhm.
all in. And that's an all in mentality, right?
Mhm.
And I feel so much more confident in myself these days and how I look at my job now that I have within the school board and I'm like, I'm blessed to have a job. I'm blessed to go to work every single day. My commute's not terrible anymore because it's a place where I'm able to listen to my podcasts and really just bring myself and center myself and be grateful for everything that I have in life.
Mhm.
Um, and bring in peace into my life, joy, calm, right? And then knowing that greatness is there. It's here and it's gonna keep growing.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's, it's interesting you share that like you are greatness, right? And that is why I titled the book there, was to help everyone to understand that simple idea. Like if you truly remind yourself of those three simple words, like you are greatness or I am greatness, like it's powerful, right? It reframes, it shifts your
Yeah.
thinking, and that's where your power is, right?
Yeah. And again, Think and Grow Rich. You keep throwing these amazing books at me and I just can't stop, right? It's
Yeah.
just like you created a monster. I'm just like, okay, give me more. I want
Yeah.
more. I want more.
Yeah.
Um, there's a couple from Napoleon Hill, there's a couple quotes and you told me like you gotta get on this book. It's gonna really make you think about how you really put walls up on your own by yourself to yourself.
Mhm.
Until you try it, how will you know? Until you try it, how will you
Mhm.
know? You said that to me in our coaching session. And you said, until you try it, how will you know? Apply. How would you know? Right.
Mhm.
And then it's tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it.
Mhm.
And I recently posted on Instagram this exact quote from Napoleon Hill. And I intend on growing the women's program for women, girls, and gender minorities in this province
Mhm.
and beyond and use this platform that Football Ontario has blessed me with
Mhm.
to continue to grow the game for women, girls, and gender minorities in this province, in this country, and whatever platform I'm on. Because I know in doing so,
Mhm.
all the blessings I give to all those players and athletes, the blessings are going to come back tenfold for me to continue to develop in my journey as a football coach.
Mhm. And here's what I would share with you is you created this opportunity for yourself, right? Like you earned it by putting in the consistent and focused reps and sets. And the truth of the matter is, you weren't ready to receive that yet. And it's by there. You needed to go through that pain, that spiritual, that mental, that emotional, that physical pain of like, what's next? And now it's like all those experiences have formed you into the strong and powerful leader you are today. That's going to help catapult this program to the next level. So that's the awesome part is, as I always say, like we're only beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's awesome, brother.
No, and I appreciate that. And in your conversation, and I went back to that episode, I keep going back to that episode with Coach Scott Brady. You said talk is cheap. People talk all the time, right? And you can talk a big game, you can talk this until you put it into practice. Until you're like Coach Scott Brady said, until you're if you're an authentic person and you want to change and improve and you're a real person, you're going to be a great coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coaching yourself, not just yourself, but your players, your family, your program, your school, your community in an authentic way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's what it like talk is cheap. Like unless you do it, it's just you're just saying it, right? You're not putting it into practice.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you say that, right? It's that, simply put, it's lead by example. And one thing that I've really come to understand through doing this work and studying my greatest resource, which is myself, is this idea that great leaders only preach what they are willing to consistently practice themselves.
Yep.
And it's interesting. That is lead by example, or as Coach Brady said, that's authenticity. And you're always making people feel something. So people will know, okay, is this just talk or is this person really being about it? And it's funny that when you be about it, when you embody it, when you lead by example, it's interesting the opportunities that flow to you.
Yeah. And I'm embracing them. Like when you asked me to join the huddle and you're like, what do you think? Like, when can we do this? So you told me your schedule. I said, tomorrow. You're like, if you were to ask me that 2 months ago, JT, I would have been like, I don't, oh Lord, I don't, are you like, you want me to like me? You want me and like with like here, like with the pot? Like, are you sure? And no. And something again, and it's just amazing, like the wisdom nuggets that come out of all these podcasts and your book and everything else you're doing. Coach Travis DeZan said, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I added him on Instagram yesterday, and it is in his bio. So shout out to Coach about that. But dang, that really hit home again. Right?
Yeah.
You told me you are where you are because you're choosing to be there. Right? And that, again, you are where you are because you're choosing to be there. And I keep going back to you're playing the game of life based on other people's rules.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So my journey's just begun, and I'm blessed that we're here. And I keep thanking everybody, but as Snoop Dogg once said, I gotta thank myself too.
Yeah. You do, brother. You gotta celebrate because at the end of the day, right? I had a great mentor that said, hey, when you start to understand that you are the only problem you will ever have, but you're also the only solution. And again, I choose not to share that with a lot of people because again, you got to be sort of open to hearing that. But then when you really start to, hey, I get to choose the next decision I make, right? And when you start to understand that that choice is actually going to get me closer to where I want to go, or it's going to get me closer to where I don't want to go. Like there's power in that, right? Because you realize like I'm the master of my own destiny.
For sure. And a perfect example is Emily Todd, like everything she's doing. Mm-hmm. I've had some great conversations with her. Just like you, when I always say, oh, I'm so sorry I'm calling you, she's like, it's not, this is my job. I love what I'm doing, right? Yeah. Like you, as an educator, left education because she knew she was meant for something greater, right? Mm-hmm. And now a pioneer in this industry, in this sport. Just started a new podcast, which is amazing as well, the M Zone, and everything she's doing for women in football and in sports. Co-founding and helping run the women's football conference with Coach Taylor, who's again another pioneer I've had amazing conversations with as well. And yeah, with our three GMs, Ash, Jory, and Steph, like the family that you brought me into, I can't be thankful enough for. Like
Mhm.
what they're doing and what they continue to do for women in football and flag football and tackle in this province and country. And it's funny, they all bring up your name, right? And and it just goes to show you like how much you've really embodied a lot of us as coaches, as people, and as members of this organization and membership. And when you said to me like, welcome to the family, like again, we keep using the word family. That's what it feels like. And
Mhm.
I think it's a blessing to be a part of it. And that interview I had as a coach was one of the toughest interviews I think I've ever had as a coach. And it was amazing to see those individuals and those coaches and GMs in that meeting were fantastic. The
Mhm.
questions were real. I really had to I really had to know my P's and Q's, and um, it was really empowering and amazing to see that many strong female individuals in that conversation leading the way, right? And I think
Mhm.
Football Ontario is doing all the right things and empowering everybody to see that the change is here and it's a positive one, and it's going to be an amazing one to run these programs. So
Absolutely. So I'm curious, brother. I want to be respectful of your time and
yeah, for
energy.
sure.
I know you have piqued someone's interest, whether it's about Nelson Lords football, whether it's about our Timo U16 women's flag program. What would the best way for people to connect with you be?
For me, it's through Instagram. My Instagram handle is, one second, here we go, is coach.cruz.footballontario. If you're interested in learning about our women's flag football program, all years, our U16, U18, U20, our senior women's program, we're all in on that. In terms of our Nelson football, we have an amazing website that's run by Coach Jeff Brock. It's nelsonlords.com. And honestly, I'm open to send me a DM. I'm here to help in any way possible and continue to help grow the sport for women, girls, gender minorities, and anyone that's interested in playing tackle football as well. I'm here to help. I'm here to help our communities, help our players and our clubs and our province to grow the game and beyond.
Absolutely, brother. And I'll be happy to share your Instagram handle and the Nelson Lords website in the description, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or on the podcast. Brother, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for the great man you are, the great dad, the great husband, the great teacher, coach, mentor, but more importantly, the amazing human being you are. The one thing that I've really come to appreciate about you is just, again, your passion for life. When I saw you at York this past weekend, you bring me in, you give me a big hug, and I just felt the love. And why it's so important to me is like being able to connect with you and being just able to give you an opportunity to share your gifts, your talents, your abilities in the service of others is just helping the collective reach our vision, right? So again, I just want to thank you for being a shining light in my life, and more importantly, being a shining light in this world. So thank you, brother.
And thank you. And I received that. Thank you so much, JT. Honestly, when you asked me to join in this podcast in the huddle, I was truly blessed. I was really nervous. I actually text Emily and I was like, hey, I don't even know what I'm going to say. She's like, you've already said everything. You know what you need to say. She's like, everything you're doing is everything that represents
Yeah,
who you are. And I think that was amazing to have those conversations. To have a mentor like her in my corner is phenomenal, right? And everything she's doing for Football Ontario and beyond, and everything you're doing. So thank you. And watch out, don't sleep on Team Ontario. We're coming. Our women's program, we're going to continue to grow.
yeah.
Big shout out to all our athletes playing for Team Ontario. And I'm so excited to be a part of this organization and truly blessed.
Absolutely, brother. Glad to have you. So, folks, Coach Lu dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that will not only help you succeed at sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. But as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. So my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from these conversations is, if it resonated with you, if it touched your heart, then please share it with a friend, a family member, a loved one, or someone you feel that just needs to hear these simple and empowering messages. The more people we have listening, understanding, and applying these simple ideas to their life, the more beautiful this world will be. As always, love having these conversations with you in the huddle, and have a blessed rest of your day. We'll talk soon, everyone.